Thank you, everybody. Can you hear my voice? Yeah? All right. So the title of our lineage address today has to do with Dharma intending. How many of you have already heard the name Dharma? Raise your hands, I can see. And karma, probably you've seen and heard and tried to grow out of, yeah? So our lineage has a little bit of a different view than more the Eastern tantric approach, but it's all lineages that leads towards the light, and so it's pretty much, there's a similarity even though our language is a little bit different. We come from what we call a twisted hair lineage, and where men and women in the Americas, New Zealand and Australia learned from different shamans and so on, and gathered knowledge through different tribes and came together in what they call the rattlesnake school. So the Red Lodge program comes out of the rattlesnake school, which is a twisted hair school for awakening. You don't have the rattlesnake here in Australia, I believe, correct? No. But the rattlesnake has this tail that is just magnificent. It goes like whenever you come close to it, and it's like an awakener. And so you stop right in your tracks and you go, okay, brother snake, I will back up a little bit. Please just go on your merry road and we will be friends. So the rattlesnake is the awakener that sheds its skin, and that's very much what our tradition is about. Shedding our skin, waking up to the next level of consciousness, and then shed our skin again, and then keep going until we have reached the desired level that we desire. Yeah? So if you look, can you see that? Yes? Okay, this is steps of Dharma intending. There's actually 10 steps of Dharma intending. The 7, 8, 9, and 10th step has words in it, and you know, the title of the step is like 3 or 4 sentences. And the words that are contained in those steps you have to study many years in the path to kind of understand very well. So I'm going to go through 1 through 6, which is already plenty. And we're going to discuss a little bit karma and dharma. And then we're going to give you a little handout that you can have and take with you to really see and ask yourself, how could you best learn and choose and love yourself enough to let go of patterns of suffering, patterns where you're losing energy, and step into patterns and ways of being where you're gaining consciousness, gaining self-love, gaining awareness. So that's what this whole experience tonight is about. Let's see. The steps of Dharma has to do with stepping into reincarnation cycles where we are productive in our patterns and can actually let go and release the ways in which we are learning through pain. So karma is not a bad thing. Karma is about learning from our past, learning all of the things that have pained us, that have made us shut down, that has made us become an armored human being that only dare to come out with our tenderness and honesty in certain arenas. And karma is all about learning and healing from the past. Karma is also about paying back indebtedness, where we have done things, or we have had behaviors or ways of being that has literally harmed other human beings, or has harmed the earth, or has put us out of balance and harmony with the plants and the animal kingdoms and the humans. So anything that we have done in our different reincarnation cycles that has been really our journey of learning and our journey of figuring out what does it mean to be a human being, and how do I transform the pain that I'm carrying and the suffering that I'm carrying and the suffering and pain that our parents were carrying and the belief systems that were separated from creation but that we still live by, how do I transform that? And previously, long time ago, all the way up until this time here in the last 10 years, there was not very many people that were able to complete their karma. So it was the Buddha and the Jesus or the wise man on top of the mountain in the Himalayas that was known by the whole community around them to be a really, really wise person that had somehow gained some neutrality and gained some sense of presence and were able to be a guide for other human beings. And so there was the rare odd one that had gone through self-growth for years and years and years and years and been able to attain this state of completing the karma, completing the suffering, and opening to the Dharma. Am I making sense? The thing that is so incredibly special, and part of why I wanted to talk about this tonight, what's so incredibly special about the day that we live in this age right now, is that, for example, our teacher Thunder Strikes said like several years ago that 40% of humanity is in Dharma. So there's like a morphogenetic field. There's this momentum of closing the karma book because we've had enough reincarnations and enough lifetimes and enough learning that we're ready to see enough already. I'm ready to forgive. I'm ready to speak what needs to be spoken. I'm ready to give forgiveness, ask for forgiveness, and I'm ready to move on. And so many years ago, or like at least 3-4 years ago, he said 40%. I think it's probably at least 50%, because this is like a momentum that is really, really carrying on. And a lot of the children that are born, and a lot of the children on Grandmother Earth now, are born in Dharma. So because it's not just the odd one here and there, but that is stepping into Dharma, but it's literally every Jane and Joe and neighbors and people that are on a spiritual path and people that are not on a spiritual path that are closing their karma book. It's incredibly special, and that is part of the whole prophecies of the 2012 that I'm sure several of you have heard about. Have you heard about the 2012 and the whole ending of the Mayan calendar and the transformation that we're going to go through as human beings? That what's happening right now is part of that whole momentum that is required to open the golden gates to the next world that we are stepping into as humanity. And that is a world with balance between the masculine and feminine, healing and peace between the sexes, and not referencing ourselves to the past and being so busy about trying to determine the future all the time, but actually being comfortable in presence. And that's what that world of the 2012 is offering us, and that world we are stepping into next year. So we're going to go through a couple of steps here of closing the karma book, opening the Dharma book, and so on. And I'm going to speak about some rules of Dharma. And I can open up for questions if you want, because there's several rules of Dharma. And part of what our teacher Thunder Strikes speaks of is that the lifetime that you are closing your karma book and opening your Dharma book in, the very, very important part in that lifetime is to understand how to live in Dharma, because the rules are incredibly different than the rules of living in karma. So I want to talk about those rules and see if we can grasp onto them, because most of you are probably in Dharma. If 40%, 50% of humanity is in Dharma, most of you are probably in Dharma, yeah? So let's go with that. Is it clear? Yeah? Okay, good. So the first step is closing the karma book. Closing the karma book has to do with stepping out of that energetic where we are constantly concerned about other people's perceptions of us, and where we will mold our behavior and be completely busy with looking outside of ourselves in order to see how we're doing. Looking outside of ourselves in order to see whether we're going to feel okay with who we are and what we're choosing to say and do and be or not. So that whole energetic of looking outside of ourselves is part of what a person who is about to close their karma book is stopping to do. And instead starting to reference, who am I? Why did the things happen to me that happened to me in my lifetime? Why did I choose my parents? How am I a co-creator in my reality in this reincarnation? I chose to be born in a physical body again. I chose to continue my evolution as a soul. And so how can I end the suffering? So when you close your karmic book, you're actually ending the patterns of suffering across the soul space, across all lifetimes. So it's actually a very, very big perspective that we're having here, that we can take and make very personal, because we are sitting in these chairs here today and we are a representation of our soul. But it's a really, really big picture. So when we close our karmic book, we actually have completed and paid back the indebtedness that we have gathered and created across our lifetimes with mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, lovers. You can imagine, just looking at your own lifetime right now and all of the different people that you have had other than harmonic experiences with. All of those things have actually been completed on a collective level within our soul space, within our psyche. So that's what closing the karma book means. Now, sometimes it can take lifetimes for a human being to open their Dharma book, even though the karma book is closed. Because we are so used to lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes to dig into the shit in order to figure out who we are. Can you recognize this? You know, we look at all of the mistakes and we look at all of the flaws and we look at all of the shortcomings and we look at all of the pain and we try to understand why the pain and how the pain, and we relive the pain, and we keep going in order to try to figure out, to learn how to get rid of the pain. Yeah? And so if we cannot wake up to the point where we actually recognize and realize that I'm done with the pain patterns,